gets possessed by Satan right before he betrays Jesus. Now we're going to see Antichrist getting possessed by Satan. So let's take a look at that. We go back to Revelation chapter 13. Now we recall in verse 1, all of a sudden the Antichrist is a beast rising out of the sea, and Satan the dragon is standing on the seashore watching. Why? Verse 3. One of its heads seemed to have received a death blow, but its fatal wound had been healed. In amazement, the whole earth followed the beast. Now, side note here, we're saying the whole earth, it means the worldly. It means those that Satan has authority over. It's not counting the new Christians that we read about at the end of chapter 12. And this gets differentiated more clearly for us later in this chapter. But notice one of its heads. Now, as we read later in this chapter and later in Revelation, we find out when it's talking about one of the heads receiving the death blow, that it's talking about Antichrist's head. Antichrist receives a death blow to his head. Later in this chapter, it says it's by a sword. I don't know if that's a literal sword or if that's just a word that John the Apostle used because it was something else and he didn't know what to call it. But Antichrist, at this point in the seventh trumpet, gets a death blow to his head where he either should have died or he does die. But somehow, he's miraculously healed, and he's doing great. And not only that, but we read that after that, he's suddenly able to do miracles, signs, wonders. How does that happen? Because he's the second person in the Bible that gets possessed by Satan. That's the only way he could survive, was to be possessed by Satan. Satan, who possessed Judas Iscariot, now at this point possesses Antichrist. Suddenly his head wound is healed. Suddenly he acts like he's had all these revelations. Suddenly he does all these magical things. So what do we have here in chapter 13 verse 1? When he's a beast rising out of the sea, that's a counterfeit born again. It's also a counterfeit baptism. Okay? So, and then we have, he's possessed by Satan. Okay, so let's take a look here at verse 4. It says, this is the unsaved world, they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast and who can fight against it? They worship the dragon and the beast? How does that work? See, at this point, Satan, the dragon, becomes a counterfeit of the Holy Spirit. He is now the unholy spirit that goes into Antichrist and gives him power. When a Christian gets saved, we get the Holy Spirit of God within us, and that gives us godly power. Antichrist has his false conversion. He receives the unholy spirit. We also have here the head wound, and suddenly he comes back to life and he's just fine. He also counterfeited death and resurrection.